All right, how's everybody doing tonight? You have a good spring break? Let's go and get started if we could. 2, 8, Z, 2. That's a 2. All right, let's go ahead and recap. Week 8 was the last week, and I think I gave you guys this as a take-home. Did I not? The risk assessment? Some of you have turned it in. I don't think everybody has, so I just wanted to highlight it here tonight. Right at the front end, if you've not yet submitted this, it's in the week 8 folder. I think you had 2 weeks to play with it. So if you've not yet turned that in the Dropbox for week 8 is where you'll submit it. And so down here is where you'll submit it as always. And it's over the steps of risk identification. Scenario is RBC account password policies. When a person registers at RBC, they're given an account for RBC Eagle, email, communication, and online services. Questions to ask yourself: is the RBC account password policy secure? How can this account password policy be exploited? Do students around you know how to change password? Do students know what a secure password is? And so if you've not yet turned that in, if you could get that done and finished by the end of the week, that would be great, and submitted. You're going to tackle it with the 4 steps of risk identification and identifying the assets, determining the threats, determining what vulnerabilities are there, and then finally making a decision regarding what to do about it. You either have 3 decisions you make. One is do something about it. The second, do nothing about it and just kind of eat the risk. And the third is transfer the risk to another place in the business or another organization to come in and take over that part of the risk. And so risk can be everything from proximity of doors, door proximity cards, clocking in and out is another risk identification for businesses where folks, maybe companies have employees clocking in and out for each other. And so that's just to name a few. People taking computers home when they shouldn't take computers home, to everything from our place of business does not have a secure password policy. Okay, nobody ever has to change it. Nobody knows when to change it or how to change it. Okay, and so that might be an issue as well. And so this week talks specifically, or this one talks specifically about password and password policy. We're on week 9. We're going to be covering this week some tools to use. We'll go over some tools for scanning and inventory. And then Thursday, we're going to be doing an email encryption lab. Next week is week 10. Week 10, we're going to be going into, for lab that week, TrueCrypt, which is the lab that allows you to encrypt a hard drive and hide it, both on a computer or a USB drive. And it's a free download. We'll do that one on week 10. Then week 11, we'll be coming to class on Tuesday, and we will not be meeting on Thursday. Thursday is going to be the time for you to work on your presentation and paper. Okay, so 2 weeks from this week, that Thursday, you will not be meeting. Now, I put this here last semester. I'm going to go and keep it up here. It goes through presentation, final presentation help. It's a Prezi presentation, start from start to finish. Give you some helps on putting together final presentation. We'll go over that on week 10 or week 11 on Tuesday. And week 12, we'll be going right into cryptography. We'll be doing how to set up Kubuntu using virtual. How many has virtual PC already on your PC or Mac at home? Probably a good idea to download that because you will be playing with that some in that week. And a lot of IT folks use virtual environment to do testing of software installation, even hardware installation, tested to make sure everything works good. Week 13, we're going to be doing a drive look lab. This is a forensics, low-level formatting, recovering files, recovering data, and doing inventory on people's computers which IT departments do periodically to make sure people are not doing things they shouldn't be doing on their computer. Week 14, we'll be covering that week on Tuesday and Thursday both. Tuesday I'll be doing a PowerPoint on security tools, and then Thursday we will be, it says no class on this one, but we're going to meet that Thursday and do a lab on some of these security tools that, security distros basically. And that'll be fun. We'll get a chance to play with a lot of different distributions that are out there. Week 14, I just went over that. Week 15 and 16 is final presentations. Okay, so it's coming up pretty quick. So again, we're in week 9. Next week we'll be covering encryption and email. And then week 11, that Tuesday we'll be covering how to help you with your presentation, final presentation and paper. That Thursday of that week we will not be meeting. Grades will be posted by tonight and be updated, so be looking for an email from me on your grades. If you've turned everything in, you're good to go. Yes?
I believe next Thursday we don't class either.
Believe what now?
Next Thursday we don't class as well.
Is that because of Good Friday or something?
Yeah.
I thought that was only Friday, but let me check to make sure. You're probably right. Let's check right now. So I didn't have that on my calendar. That doesn't mean anything. I knew we were off Friday, I thought. The campus is closed Friday. Let's look at the academic calendar. Oh, March 28th is, that's Faculty Development Day. Oh, I guess I should know about that, right? Okay, good. Well, we'll not be meeting the 28th, and that's next Thursday, right? Is that correct? All right, so 2 Thursdays in a row. Yeah, okay. We'll keep it as is. I'm not going to change the schedule. All right, well, thanks for reminding me of that. Okay, so I do have a PowerPoint we're going to look at and go over on Chapter 9 on performing vulnerability assessments. So we'll go ahead and get into that real quick. So anybody do anything fun for spring break? Anybody go anywhere? Work? That's about it? Yeah. Yeah, me too. But it was good to have off from here, right, for a while? It was nice. Okay, I'm going to set up show, and I want mirroring. So let's see. Individual window. There we go. Okay. So this one goes over basically what you're doing your take-home on is in this chapter here that you did your take-home on, risk assessment. You've got some good tools it's going to talk about in this one. One is one of the most important assets of any organization is data, goes into that. But I wanted to cover programs itself. So what is risk? In an organization, this is asked in IT anyway, not just in IT, but everywhere, what a risk is. It could be any threat agent or is any threat agent that could exploit anything in the place of business. More generally, it can be defined as an event that could occur. Like, for instance, in this room, a risk could be computers being stolen, projector being stolen, routers being stolen. How do we mitigate that risk? How do we guard against that risk from happening? We have in this room alarm. It's an alarmed room when we set it, and in the corner of the room there, if you look back in the corner, is a infrared sensor that when you walk into this room, it senses movement and then triggers a silent alarm. And so, but anything basically that has risk in a business, it can be property, it can also be data. What else do you think could be risk in a business besides property and data that you can think of?
Fire.
What was that?
Fire.
Fire. Yeah, fire definitely could be a risk, and it would be, destroying property and destroying data. Anything else as far as what could be a risk?
Liability.
Any liability whatsoever, right. Any liability could be a risk. So your employees deliver for a living, parts maybe at times, or do errands for your business at times. You're liable for those employees while they're on the road. And if they get in an accident, the company is liable for that, and so that's a risk. And so anything else you can think of? So those are just a few risks, definitely. There's a lot of them out there. In fact, there's whole positions and jobs just in what we're talking about this semester, risk assessment. Whole places of software, pieces of software you can purchase, both freeware and paid, that cover risk assessment, risk analysis. Risk analysis is a real position. IT risk assessment is a real title that you can get a job at and perform crunching numbers and putting together presentations and putting together a risk analysis for a business all the time. And so risk generally denotes a negative connotation to a business or to an asset. So realistically, risk cannot never be eliminated entirely. It will cost too much and take too long, but we can limit risk. And we can look at limiting them tonight, but also some of the risks are just going to be kind of absorbed and just assumed that there's nothing you can really do about it. And we've had experience that in our own lives probably since 9/11. Are we fearful to walk outside the door? Could things happen if we walk outside the door? Yes. Could we get shot at? Could our plane be taken over? Could things happen on the freeway? All these stuff could happen, right? But those are things we assume. Those are risks we assume when we walk out. That, if it happens, it happens. There's not really much we can do about it. We're not going to let it stop our lives. And so you don't want to be paranoid about your business, but you also don't want to put your head in the sand as well. And so we're going to talk tonight about ways to better your business, but also maybe, since you guys have already done this with a few of you have already turned in the assignment, I might ask maybe as we go along tonight to kind of share some things you found out about, maybe you didn't know, about the lack of our security or how secure our passwords are, or how, what your thoughts are on, do people know on campus how to get to our password and to reset it, or do they not know? And so I might ask some of you to kind of share as we go along here. So what risk management is basically a systematic approach to managing loss and a threat that is related to that loss. So the steps you do and perform, they don't have to be done in this order, but generally this is a good way to start anyway. The first step in risk management is determine what assets you have. I put up here a piece of software I know I've mentioned in here maybe. If I haven't, I will now. SpiceWorks. I know I did my networking 110 class. It's an inventory piece of software that you can load on any computer. It turns it into a web server, and then it scans your network for all the devices within like a 24-hour period of time. So any printers, computers, servers, mobile devices that are connected, it finds them, puts in their information like the SSID, MAC address, IP address, manufacturer. It even scans such things, if it has administrator rights to get into the computer, it'll scan the software installed on all the computer. It'll scan memory that's installed, hard drive space, web site activity, things of that nature can all be scanned within a short period of time. And then once it does that first thorough scan, it just incrementally scans the network all the time. But what's great about this software is it's free, number one. Number two, once it does the inventory, you can go in and tag devices. So say I bought a new Cisco switch in the box over here, and I wanted it inventories that. I can tag it and upload to that device a PDF file of the purchase PDF of that equipment. I can upload the warranty. I can upload issues I've had with it right to that asset, put the price that it's worth. And once you're through inventory all of your stuff and you put in there price, warranty information, it'll total everything at the end and give you an analysis of what your business is worth asset-wise. And it's totally free, doesn't cost anything to do. Now, I will say it does miss some things, just because if it's an older piece of software or hardware, it might not recognize it. But for the most part, I'd say it's about 95% accurate on gathering all hardware, which is pretty good, especially if you're by yourself doing a network job, which a lot of times in this area you are usually maybe 1 or 2 people, 3 people in a business of say 100, 150 people. That's going to be the max IT staff you're going to have. And so it's nice to have something like this to use. And what's great about Spiceworks is they have, it is ad-based, meaning they get paid by advertisers, but what's great about it as well is all the other IT folks that are connected put in their, so say for instance I have an HP172 printer that's having problems. I can type in there HP172 driver problem, and then it'll scan all the blogs in there, find out solutions that people have had, and give me links and stuff to drivers, and so and so said this is what helped me the most. This article helped me the most, and so that's what's really nice about it too, is kind of that networking that you find with it. But even though you're not a network admin, you can download this piece of software to any home computer and run it. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll scan your home network and see what's on there. You can start playing with it. It's got built into it as well a trouble system, a ticket system, to where basically you can use this software to remote control. You put a shortcut on everybody's desktop in your business, and when they click on it, it prompts the administrator from either a mobile device, laptop, whatever, and then they can control that computer or talk to that person if they have speakers and a microphone on the other end. It's a lot of cool stuff. It's built on VNC, which you guys are familiar with, remote control software. And so give it a shot. That's a good one for asset identification, which is the very first step. Find out what you got. And types of assets, we've talked about a few already. Data, we've talked about. Hardware, we've talked about. Yeah, do you have something?
Does that software ever slow down your network at all while it's scanning?
No, in fact, it runs on what I've ran it on is like an old PC, right, that I'm not using and connected to the network. And the only process it's going to use is from that PC, right? Your network itself is not going to utilize anything, really. It just like puts its feelers out there. And it, like I said, it takes 24 hours for the first iteration. So it doesn't really try to, hit everything really hard. And you can even tell when to run. What I've generally done is say, okay, I want you to run from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day. And then don't scan through the day. You can do that as well. And so it'll do an active scan just for that time period. So that's a good question. Yeah, you can set it up just like that. So data, hardware, personnel, physical assets, and software. What about personnel? Let's talk about a business, any business, and personnel. Let's talk about assets that have to do with every employee, regardless of what the job is. Let's talk about what assets people have when they bring to, what assets do they bring to work besides themselves? What do you bring to work? You drive, right? That's an asset, correct? What else do maybe people bring to work that's their own stuff? What was that?
Cell phones, all that.
Yeah. Yep, good. Anything else? Yeah, their own laptops. It's big right now for people to bring your own laptop, bring your own personal device to get your work done. So personal assets have actually increased over the years, probably just because of technology that people bring in. But you got your car, you got their maybe they have for ladies or purses, for guys, we've got our wallets, we've got a car inside the car, we've got all the contents of what's inside the car itself. And then physical assets talk about things like what I've just mentioned, but it could also be guests that come into the building, people that visit the business would also be an asset as well. And anything you'll see in a second that is an asset is a liability and needs to be assessed. And then software is the last one. So along with assets, the attributes need to be compiled, and what needs to be put in the assets for the attributes is it's important to determine the relative value of all of your assets. You might not have a receipt. You might not have, a receipt on everybody's car in the parking lot, but you can give a relative number, and there's software to do that. And then factors that should consider the relative value are how critical is this asset to the goals of your organization? How difficult would it be to replace that asset? How much does it cost to protect it? And how much revenue does it generate? Okay? And so there's some things that are definitely not going to be critical to the organization, but they're still going to be an asset. So if you have 50 employees, those are going to be at the very top of your assets. You're going to have them to work to get the job done. Lower on the totem pole would be maybe, I don't know, printers or a computer. Even though you say it's important to get your job done, it's not as important as the person doing it, as a personnel that's doing the work. Also, where it talks about how difficult it will be to replace it, it's easy to replace a laptop, printer, desktop, right? Server, I mean, it costs money, but it's easy to replace it. People, not so much. And so that gets to how much does it cost to protect it. Liability is what we're talking about. Every business has to pay liability on every employee that works for them. It's a law that they have to have some type of liability. Depending on the business they have, has maybe more liability than others, depending on the type of business. So a restaurant liability would be different from, let's say, construction worker liability, right? Because construction worker liability is going to be in harm's way, maybe more so than a restaurant person. Or a restaurant person is going to be higher liability than, say, somebody that works at Sears at a front desk cashier type of position. How much revenue does that asset make? So, for instance, if you work in sales, the sales department makes up, let's say, 70% of your sales, 80% of your sales. IT department really doesn't bring any sales in, but without the IT department, they would directly correlated with sales, making money. So it's a little harder to put money generation on IT departments because of that. But that's where software, like I talked about here, SpiceWorks allows you to do such things as, say you're a sales department, and they say, okay, IT department, I need you to do this for us so we can get more sales. And it might be create a program, create a spreadsheet, create a process, create a whatever. You can put money on that ticket say I put 6 people on that project to work on it in a 2-week period of time. That's money that I just spent, but the company also spent to make money. So that's an asset from the IT department. At the end of the year, we can say we contributed $500,000 to the $50 million that was made in supporting these departments around us. And so revenue from an IT perspective, again, it's a little harder, but revenue for sales, not so much. But everything's going to make some type of revenue, whether directly or indirectly. So on the attribute and description, I'll just highlight a few of these. You need like the manufacturer name, equipment type, model number, serial number, tag number, what type of firmware it has currently, where it's located in the building, the MAC address, the organizational unit it's found in, and what function it serves. And you can have more attributes than that. This is just an example. So you can basically query this table and query these assets easily once you have them all entered in. You can say, okay, in my organization, I want to bring in all the assets that serve sales function. They have a function of sales, or they have a function of productivity, of a function of manufacturing, a function of whatever. And you can query those and bring them in easily into a spreadsheet to identify them. Then you get into the steps of risk assessment of looking at the factors that should be considered in determining the value. So we've found out the assets. We're now tagging those assets with value. And some of the ways we can tag those assets with value is how quickly can they be replaced. We've already talked about like printers, computers, easy to replace. What's the cost? What's the impact of the organization if I lose a printer versus I lose a person in sales? What's the security implication if this asset is unavailable? So say the proximity card, the door that I have, the proximity card where employees come in and out in a secure room that has maybe high-tech equipment, that door's pretty important, isn't it? It has to work. That's a pretty high implication if that door is non-functional and folks can get in and out without any security. So then we go to the identification part, which is the next step. So we've done the assets, we've added value. Now we're going to look at the threats against those assets. That's the next step. And the book calls it a threat agent, any person or thing or power that carries out a threat against the asset. And what you do is people that do this for a living do what's called a threat modeling. They basically put together a scenario in your business that what type of a threat could hit it. So we've already mentioned fire. It could be a tornado in that location. It could be high tornadoes. It could be terrorist. You have to put that in there as well. All companies having to do that now. It could be an employee, some type of threat employee brings, but maybe they crash something on the network on purpose. Or a virus comes in and takes over the network. But what this does basically is it helps understand who the attackers are and why they would attack and what types of attack occur. Now this is probably one of the things most businesses do not do. They don't want to think about it. Human nature is out of sight, out of mind. If I don't think about it, it's not real. It can't happen if I don't think about it, right? And so people don't want to think about it, but we need to think about it and think about ways, okay, how can people get in the front door of our business that use proximity cards? I'll name a couple ways. One is inclement weather. This has happened multiple times in locations where folks that want to get into a building to steal things or to find information will find a rainy day, right, where it's really rainy outside, and go, as people are going into work at 9 o'clock, they'll just kind of walk in with them and say, "Oh, I forgot my card in the car. Can you let me in?" or whatever. And they might not even know who they are. Maybe it's a larger business. Just let them right in the door. Happens all the time. So how can that be stopped? How can that be thwarted? How can that be looked at and say, okay, how can we stop this? Well, one way is we can train people to not do that. Maybe they've never been told not to do that. Maybe they've never been in that scenario I just gave you. And then it's a rainy day 2 months later after a training, they're like, "I don't know this person. They're asking for my card. No, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Can't do that. Can't give it to you." But if they didn't have the training, didn't have the modeling done for them, they're hard pressed to do anything or have the skills to help them. Same thing with passwords. People coming into a local business saying, dressed in a three-piece suit, saying, "I'm getting ready to meet with your CEO, but I forgot my file at home." They're telling the person at the front desk this, "Can I get in and get my email real quick? That'd be a big help if you could let me do that." And because they're going to be really mad if I don't have that file. Awkward pause. The person goes, "Yeah, let me go get some coffee." They think they look trustworthy. "Let me go get some coffee, and I'll let you come in, and I'll turn the computer around or whatever, let them use it." There you go. What's the takeaway from that? Again, education. Bring folks into training. Bring in this type of scenario. 2 months later, it's the same thing happens. That scenario pretty close happens. The person at the front desk this time goes, I'm sorry, I can't let you do that." With no problems. They have no problem saying that because they've been given power to say that during a training period. Somebody's given them the power and the tools to do it. And so threat modeling is really good to do. And every business is different on threat modeling depending on your business. So manufacturing is going to be different from sales, from construction, from education. Education facilities have to be locked as far as K through 12, have to be real careful on who they let in the front doors to get the kids, who they let in the front doors to pick up the kids, what type of systems in place for that. And we probably all heard horror stories of that not working so great. Same thing in businesses. How many businesses have any type of screening when it comes to people entering in the front door at all? Do they have screening, or can just anybody walk in? And so those are scenarios you can think of. The other one probably is when it gets to patents and it gets to hardware in rooms of your business. How are they secured in that room? Are they secured in that room? If not, could people easily grab them? And if they do, is there any cameras that will catch them walking out to the car with that piece of hardware? And if there's not, a real easy solution is we don't want to spend 10 grand on cables, which is pretty expensive to secure hardware in a business with the steel cables and bringing somebody in to do it. But it might be cheaper just to get cameras and let everybody know, oh, by the way, there's cameras now mounted for your safety at all exits of the doors. And they know, well, we word it like that, and that is the truth, but also the flip side is, if you want to steal something, it's going to be recorded. Okay? And so because of that, it's going to be cheaper to maybe spend $1,000 on cameras than 10 grand on securing all the devices in the location. And so you think of different scenarios, different threat modeling. And during threat modeling, you actually figure out ways to secure things better just during the threat modeling procedure. Because even employees will come up with ideas like, well, what if we did this? And people in IT or people in management might never have thought of that. But these people that are working in those areas, that are experts in those areas, generally have pretty good ideas of ways that they can make their job more secure. Because guess what? They work there every night, or they work there every day. They see things that come in. And why is it that most people, not some people, most employees feel they can't share information that maybe could cause problems at work or could cause issues security-wise at work? Why is it that we don't do that? And I mean we, us including, don't do that. Don't share freely with management. Hey, so-and-so let so-and-so out last night and clocked off for him at 3 o'clock.
Don't want to get people in trouble.
Yeah, we don't want to be a snitch, right? You don't want to be a snitch. Don't want to be don't want to be the snitch guy or snitch gal. It's okay if a camera's there snitching for them, though, right? We don't care about that. That's great. But we don't want to do it. And, it's human nature. And really, you don't know how it's going to be how that's going to be reacted to. You might say something and whoever you told them goes, I don't believe you. Or, don't worry about it. Or I don't care. Or whatever. And then you're looked at as a snitch. And so, yeah, it's, there's a catch-22 on that. And so that's mainly, it's a fear of the unknown when people stand up for what's right and what they think is right anyway. They never know how the people in authority are going to react to that. And so during this whole modeling procedure, employees can really give good feedback without fear of, retaliation or any type of, because usually during this whole scenario, it's an outside group coming in and doing this. And that's one thing I'll mention is a lot of times when you're doing risk assessment, you want outside people doing that risk assessment because the people inside are going to be biased, right? And they're not going to be as open-minded and forthcoming on issues that they know is present, correct? And so it's good to have somebody from outside come in, do a threat assessment, look at what's going on truthfully and honestly, and give a report back. So that's threat modeling. So here's some different categories and examples of threats. The categories of threats from natural disasters to espionage to hardware failure, human error, software attacks, software failure, technical obsolescence, theft, utility interruption. And then different examples of all of those. Okay? Now some of these we cannot control at all, like the first one, natural disasters. You know, an act of God, we cannot control that. We cannot control fire, flood, earthquake at all. There's no control of that. Software piracy, copyright information, we can definitely control, and it does happen, by the way, a lot in businesses. We can't control human error. Human error, people drop things, break things, leave a laptop that has corporate information on it. But what we can do is look at scenarios and say, if this happens, how can we get back? How can we stand back up? How can we get back on our feet? And that goes to taking it to the next level, which is an attack tree, looking at a visual representation. A lot of companies will even have actors come in and do it. Bigger companies will do this, kind of act out things to show employees, what not to do, what to do. So here's an example of an attack tree. You've got the car stereo is the object to be stolen or to be taken here. And you've got 4 different levels of the tree, 4 different levels of the attack that could occur. So let's start with the 4th level, which would be bribing the attendant, blackmailing the attendant, or threatening the attendant to make a copy of a key to get the car stereo. All right? Level 3 would be grab a purse. Level 2, carjack it, steal a key, break the glass to get the car stereo. The basic point is, if somebody wants to get the car stereo, they're going to get the car stereo. Right? Eventually, if they want it bad enough, and they wait long enough, and the right opportunity comes up, for them, or you say wrong opportunity, criminal, but right opportunity for them to get the car stereo. So if they want to get it, they're probably going to get it. You just figure out how can they get it, what opportunities do we have around us that they can get it, and you can replace car stereo with anything. Car stereo can be replaced with your data, your computers, your cars on your parking lot, your patents that are under lock and key right now, hopefully in a room somewhere. Who can get into that? Who has a key? Can they be bribed? Or when are they going to be bribed? Or how long will it take? It's not a question, I guess, and this is one thing businesses don't want to admit, is, the term, the saying, this could never happen or will never happen to us, is what a lot of businesses want the consultants to tell them at the end of this whole process is, okay, at the end of this whole process, whatever we end up doing, what you're going to tell me then is, and this is what I want to hear, that this will never happen. You're going to tell me this will never happen, right? The patents will never be breached. The building will never be breached. The hardware will never be stolen if we go through all these processes. No, you can't give them 100%. What you can do, though, is you can minimize the risk as much as possible. Okay, you can minimize. You're never going to get away with 100%. Okay, like in this whole risk assessment scenario that we're looking at here on the tree, some businesses are actually functioning like this. You got the car stereo, and you got the key in the door of the car, sitting there. Right? We've all worked at places like that, where it's blatant, it's right in your face. There's no security whatsoever. Anybody can do whatever they want to do. And so you have that type of security all the way to those businesses that it's near impossible, even for the CEO, to get anything done because of all the rules, regulations, red tape that people have to go through to get anything done. So you have the extremes. You have one extreme or the other. You need to find a middle ground, I guess, when it comes to security, to where you're not so extreme that people can't function, but you're not so lenient that people just have to walk in and grab what they want to and walk out with no ramifications. And so there's got to be some middle ground, because Businesses tend to do one or the other. They usually do one of the extremes, okay? And generally an extreme happens when something, the bad extreme, meaning going far to the right of, people can't do anything, when something bad happens. They're like, okay, well, nobody's going to be able to do nothing now. Okay, you can't breathe. You come into work, you breathe in at 8 o'clock, you breathe out at 5 o'clock. Okay, nothing else you can do, right? Because something bad happened. And so before that, though, everything was easy street. Everything, key in the doors, everybody could do what they wanted. And so there's got to be the middle ground. Generally, in the middle ground area is where you'll find more productivity. Not that it's not going to be hard for some people to do it, but it's going to be more productive and more acceptable, kind of a middle ground scenario. So here's another risk tree. You've got the database in the access database in the research department. Maybe it has all the R&D stuff, has all the patents maybe. So number 3 level here is, okay, how are we going to get to this stuff? Okay, we're going to look over somebody's shoulder and watch them type in the password. That's number 1. We're going to look under their mouse pad because we know that's where they put the password. Or we could put more on this, right? We could just ask them for the password. Okay. To level 2, unattended computer, rogue access point somewhere in the business that can be accessed easily, break a web key easily, and then finally getting to that access research and development database. Again, we want to minimize that from happening as much as possible. We want to try to figure out ways in our business to where we train people not to give out your passwords. We train people not to put passwords under your mouse pad. We train people not to bring in your access points into workplace because it could cause our data to be stolen. It could cause our patents to be taken from us and cause you to lose your job eventually. If you're caught, you could lose your job. And so education, letting them know, give them scenarios. People understand and people relate to what I just said and understand it. You don't have to be geeky or technical about it. Just speak it in those words and they get it and they'll be like, okay, I won't bring an access point to work. I won't give them my password. I won't put my password under the... Now, will there be 100% compliance? No. But at least you've got something out there to where it's culture that you've given for people to do. And there's always going to be people that buck the system. There's always going to be people that you tell them to go left, they go right. You tell them not to delete, they delete. You tell them, go here, they go there. I mean, that's human nature. It's going to happen. But if you have systems in place where people are trained right when they get hired, here's the rules, here's how we do things, 99% of people are going to follow that. And, the 1% that don't, it's going to be everywhere. That 1%'s everywhere. And so, in every type of business, you're not going to get away from that. But the one thing you don't want to do is just nothing and just let kind of things go. Then you got the vulnerability appraisal, which basically takes a snapshot. And this is real key to have somebody coming in to do it. Every asset must be viewed in light of each threat. Because the people working there might be like, well, it's not no big deal that everybody has administrator rights to this database. Nobody's ever going to do anything. Who cares? Right? And that might be the attitude, but the person coming in goes, well, yeah, but in that database, you've got $5 million